Hey guys, in this video I'm going to demonstrate the Pixelator Photoshop action. The way this action works is that you start off with a photo, you then fill in your subject with a color, you run the action and it creates this effect. So there's a number of different things you can do with this action. Firstly, you can choose any pixel size. So you can see in this one here, I've obviously gone with a much smaller size. This one here, a lot bigger. So I'll show you how you can choose your pixel size. Next, you can choose from 4 different extrusion angles, so you can see those there. And lastly, each extrusion angle comes with 5 different extrusion levels, so you can see that there. Okay. So let me just show you some more examples of the effect. Let's get those up. So here was my photo. That was the area that I filled in, and that's the result that I got. So you can see in that example there, I've opted for the extrusion left angle, and I'll also show you how you can duplicate some of the pixels, as you can see onto the left hand side there. It's created like a dispersion effect. So this big blue box here is just representing that I have filled in my entire image with a color, because I want the effect to be applied over the entire image. I'll just zoom in a bit here so you can see the details. So another cool thing about this action is that you can see in this photo here where I've brushed, I have used quite a soft brush, and even when you use a soft brush, it's still going to create a perfect square pixel edge. Okay. I'll also show you how you can sort of deconstruct your image to only use parts of your subject, and yeah, how you can duplicate the parts as well and sort of move them around to create additional effects. Alright, so let me close these down and we'll get into it. So here I am in Photoshop. I've got my photo open here. Now there's just a couple of things you need to check off before we run the action, just to make sure you get no errors. So firstly, go into your layer panel, and this top right hand corner icon here, click on that. I'm just going to detach my layer panel for a sec. So yeah, click on this icon and go to panel options. Right down the bottom here, make sure add copy to copy layers and groups is selected. 99% of the time that's going to be selected, but if it's not and you're unaware, you're always going to run into errors in the action. Okay, let me just put that back. Next, go to image mode, make sure you're in RGB color mode, and 8 bits channel is selected. So what you also need to make sure of is that all other Photoshop documents are closed, and that you only have one Photoshop document open when you're running this action. There is a command in the action playback that refers to the first Photoshop document open. So if I had, say, 10 documents open here, the action would all of a sudden jump to the first Photoshop document and start making changes there. Okay, so close everything else but the photo that you're working on. Next, for those of you using CS6 and above, there's something very important you need to check before you run the action. Okay, so if you go to the select menu and go to color range, make sure up the top here that sampled colors is the one that's already selected. So if it is, you don't need to worry about this step. Okay, but of those of you who have opened up the color range and say midtones, highlights or shadows are selected, just open up this menu, click on sampled colors and click anywhere over your photo, doesn't matter where, click OK and then deselect that. So now when you go back into the color range, sampled colors should be selected by default. Now the reason why people in CS6 and above have to check this. It's basically because it's basically a bug that I've identified from that version onwards, where even though in the action I have recorded that the sample colors be selected, if you have been using the highlights, midtones or shadows before you run the action, for some reason it will still jump to what you used previously. So just make sure, yeah, sample colors is selected, so that's very important. Okay. Now what I need to do is create a new layer. So go to Layer, New Layer, and this must be called Brush, all in lowercase. Okay. If there's an uppercase letter or spelled incorrectly, the action won't work at all. Click OK. So the idea here with a brush layer is that you want to fill in your subject with a color. Now, if I wanted the effect to be applied over my entire image, all I need to do is fill my canvas with a color. So say, doesn't matter what color, I'll pick color here, and the shortcut key to fill in your canvas with the foreground color here is Alt Backspace or Option Backspace. So if I hit those, it will fill in my canvas with a color. So now when I run the action, the effect will be applied everywhere. But I'm going to delete that. Now another cool thing about this action, if I just hit B on the keyboard, grab my brush tool, if I just grab a soft brush here and start brushing away, it doesn't matter if I use a soft brush because it's always going to create a perfect pixel edge. So if you only want to brush over a portion of your photo, you can experiment that way. But what I'm going to do is just hit W, grab my magic wand tool here, and I'm just going to click around my photo, holding down Shift to grab these areas here, which it hasn't selected. I'm going to invert that selection, Control Shift I or Command Shift I, and then fill that with my foreground color. And there we go, my subject is now filled in. Right, so now we need to load up the Actions panel. So go to Window, Actions, and it will pop up to the side here. I'm just going to, that's actually the action now. I'm just going to delete that to show you how I got it in there. Go to this top left, this top right hand corner icon. Click on that. Go to Load Actions. Select the Pixelator.atn file, and it will pop up in here. So let me explain to you how this is set up. So we've got this action here. It's called Extrude Left, Very Low. So you can see I've grouped these into different extrude directions. So this one here, the pixels will grow out to the left. This one here to the right, down and up. And you can see next to each extrusion angle, you've got a depth. Very low, low, medium, high, and very high. So this is where you just want to experiment with different heights. If you're using the action on, say, portraits, you might not want to use very high because it might distort your subject too much. You might want to use very low or low, but that's for you to experiment with. And right down the bottom here, I've got these bunch of actions here. And you can see in brackets I've got don't touch. So it's very important that you don't move these around or rename them, otherwise you'll break the action. So if you've accidentally renamed this something and the action's broken, you don't know what to do, just simply delete the action and reload it back into your actions panel. Okay, so I am just going to choose, let's go Extrude Left, Medium, and all you need to do then is click play, and immediately you'll get this pop-up. It says, in the next step, use the cell size slider to choose your pixel size. Click OK to confirm your setting and resume the action playback. Click Continue below to proceed. So just click Continue on this window. And here you'll get a mosaic window that pops up, and this is where you choose your pixel size. Okay? So, yeah, if you want really big pixels, drag that out to the right. Very small to the left. I wouldn't recommend going much lower than, say, 3 pixels. Okay, you can see if I zoom in here, they are just really, really small. So for this example, I might work with, say, 15. Click OK. And in a few seconds we'll get one more pop-up. Here it is here. It just says, in the next step, just click OK on the pop-up window. Do not adjust the cell size. Click Continue below to proceed. So click Continue or hit Enter. And all you need to do here is hit OK or hit Enter again. Do not adjust the cell size here. if you play around with the cell size in this window, you're going to get a distorted effect. So just hit enter on this window, and that's all you need to do. So the action will take around a minute and a half to play back. So let me just jump forward to the result. Okay, so the action just finished playing, and you can see the result. So I'm going to collapse the actions panel, and we'll look into the layer panel now. So the first thing you want to do, and you want to do this with any of my actions, is to collapse all the folders that are open when the action's finished playing back. There's no way for me to record the collapsing of folders, so you're just going to do this step manually. Very simple, hold down Control Alt or Command Option and click on this arrow next to the Pixelator folder here. Click on that, and then everything is collapsed. So you've got the Pixelator folder here, it's got all the effects inside. If you want to run the action again, just delete the Pixelator folder, and I've left the brush layer hanging around at the top here so you can add more to your selection or change where you've brushed, whatever. Undo that. Alright, we'll go inside the Pixelator folder, and I'll just cover these three at the top first. So this one here, pretty simple. All I've done is just increase the overall saturation in the colors over the entire design. If you want to keep your true colors, just click that back to 0, somewhere around there. Alright, pretty simple. This layer here, it's called Reveal Normal Photo. I've got in brackets here Brush Mask. So the idea here is, well, if I turn this on and off, you see it does nothing. But if I hold down Shift and click on this mask to hide it, you'll see all it is, it's a cutout of the area that we brushed. And I've put this above everything else. So if you want to reveal your normal photo, just select the mask, hit B, get your brush out, make sure white is your active color. And if you start brushing over the mask, you can use the left and right square brackets to adjust your brush size. If you start brushing away, you can start revealing your normal photo. So this is where you can be a little bit creative. You can create a blend between your normal photo and the pixel effect. Now, this one below, it's called Reveal Flat Pixels, works in the same way as the layer above. If I hold down Shift to hide it, you'll see it's just a flat pixelized image with your photo. And you know, you can use these two in conjunction, so you could have, say this area here is our normal photo, and then I could brush white into this one to then blend into the flat pixel version. So you've got 3D pixels into flat pixels, and then you've got your true image. So you can sort of play around with those two layers and get some creative results there. Alright, so, excuse me. These are the 10 main folders that have all of our pixel effects inside of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn off all these here except to the top one for the moment. It's just so it's easy to explain how I've set this up. So this folder here is called Pixel Set 1, and I've got in brackets here highlights. And right down the bottom here, I've got Pixel Set 10 in brackets shadows. So if I turn this one on, you'll see they are the dark pixels. So essentially, Pixel Set 1 will create 3D pixels out of the brightest points in your photo. Pixel Set 10, the darkest points. And every folder in between just targets a different color range in your photo and creates that 3D pixel effect out of it. Okay, and you can also be creative, just like what I'm doing here, is just turn off some folders to deconstruct the design. Okay, and you will also be creative. You know, you can start brushing into these layers here to reveal the, you know, brush into these gaps, whatever. So let me just hide these again, and I'm just going to turn on one that covers a bit more area, maybe this one, and we'll go inside this folder and let me tell you about how I've set this up. So I'll turn these off. So each one of these folders, the top layer is just the flat pixel. Okay, you can see that there. The layer below is the shadow. Okay, so a shadow will emit from every pixel. And this layer here is the depth. So I've turned it on. You see there is the depth. Now the reason why I've included a shadow with each pixel set is because you can control that separately. So if you look at the opacity of that shadow, it's only at 5%. Now I can just increase that, and you can see it's much darker. So if you start turning off, if you only work with a couple of folders, you might want to jump inside that folder and increase that intensity of the shadow. But what I found, if I applied, if I just turn all those on, if I increase the shadow opacity amount with every folder by default, so if I turn this up, you'll see how it's darkening our image. What I found, if I had anything greater than 5% opacity with every one of these folders in the shadow, it just made your entire image too dark. So that's why I've set it at 5%. But yeah, if you're turning on, if you're turning off a bunch of these layers, you can control that shadow separately. Okay. Now another thing to note about this action is that it is built on kind of like a height map. So pixel set 1 highlights will sit higher than everything else. So you can see down here on his tail, you can see how the white pixels there are sitting on top of these dark pixels. Black, obviously, the dark pixels sitting right at the bottom. And so what you can do here is you can, select some of these folders and rearrange them. So if I drag this all the way to the top, the color range in these pixels will now sit above the white pixels. So if I just undo that and redo it, you can see that there. So if I wanted the shadows to sit much higher than the midtones, I could grab, say, pixel set 8 to pixel set 10 and drag that right at the top. So you can see now the shadows are sitting much higher than the midtones. So now let's look at this pixel backing layer. So the main role of this layer is, if I turn this off, you can see you get these straight lines running through your photo. So the aim of this action here is just to fill in all those gaps. Okay. Now this layer here, what I might do is I'll turn off all these. This layer here by default is turned off, and if you turn it on, it just overlays a grid over all these pixels here. And I've just got in brackets here opacity. If it's too strong, just lower the opacity. If you want it stronger, just turn that up. And so what you can also do here, if you can turn on individual layers, folders here, and you get kind of a cool effect. You get these pixels growing out of the flat grid. Alright, so you can experiment with that effect as well. Okay, I'll just turn that off for a sec. Now, one thing to note about the pixel backing layer is that it also has a very soft drop shadow around the edge. I might just zoom in a bit here. So if I turn this effect on and off, it's a bit slow, but you can see that there. So just double click on the drop shadow. If you don't want that drop shadow, just uncheck that. Okay. Zoom out. So another thing I like to play around with here is duplicating the folders. So say for example, if I select pixel set 5 and I hold down Alt or Option and click and drag down below pixel set 10, I've just made a copy of that folder, and now I can move that around, and you can see that it has separated those pixels from our photo, and you can start moving them around. So I could grab, say, pixel set 6 now, drag that down, and move that out. And so again, you can see how the shadow isn't very prominent here, so that's where you can jump back in here and select the shadow and increase the opacity. You can do the same for pixel set 5. Okay. Now, if you didn't want any shadows at all, it's just a little bit of manual work. I'll just delete these two folders. All you need to do is jump inside these folders and turn off each shadow layer. Okay. Let's turn those back on. Now, right down the bottom here, we have the background color. Just double click on this box here if you want to change the background color. Maybe we'll go for like a blue. If you want your pixelized image to fall onto your original background, turn off the soft background noise texture and the background color. and that will just fall back onto your original background. Now if you look around the edges of your photo, there might be really small areas where it hasn't quite created a pixel. So you can see the claw of the eagle here hasn't quite created a pixel there. And you can see around the edges of the wing here how you can see how it's rounded. If I zoom in a bit, you can see that there. What I want is, you know, a really clean square pixel edge. So I'll zoom out. So what I like to do here is just create a new layer. Control Shift N or Command Shift N. Grab the clone stamp tool here. Clone stamp tool. Make sure Sample All Layers is selected. And if you hold down Alt and sample an area of your background and start brushing away, and you can kind of clean up the areas, the edge of your photo. So I could sample up here, go down through here. Okay, so that's just a really quick method to clean up the edges. But I'll delete that, turn this back on. Now if you wanted to export your design on a transparent background, very simple. All you need to do is turn off these three layers here. Turn off those three and you're ready to save that out as a PNG, and the shadows will all be there, so you can just drop that onto your other designs. So guys, that pretty much covers everything about the action and what all the layers and folders do. Well, what I might do just quickly is load up another photo and go through that setup process and play back the action, just to show you how quickly you can create these effects in your photos. So I'm going to close this down and I'm just going to open up this photo here, and I want the effect to be applied over the entire image. So I'm going to create a new layer, call it brush, fill it with a color, get the actions panel out, and for this one I want to extrude to the right and we'll go high. Click play. I'll hit enter here and I'll choose a much smaller pixel size. Hit enter, wait for this next window to pop up, hit enter twice, and that is it. I'll jump to the result, and there's the result. So guys, if you're having any issues with the action, just send me an email. I'll put the link down to the help page below. If you can just contact me through there, I'll be in touch.